Hi guys, I am Stacey Ann, the Melanin Principessa, and welcome to my channel. So today I would like to talk with you about a concept I term money recycling. Yes, money recycling. We are recycling more than just plastics these days. I'm also going to be sharing with you 5 ways in which I use this very concept in my day-to-day living. So stay with me if you would like some information on how you can stay the course, how you can get around those unexpected expenses without compromising your savings. Alright, so before we get into it, let me just remind you to like and subscribe to this channel if you like this content and if you'd like to see more of these kind of content. So what is money recycling? It's the reworking of your budget to facilitate unplanned minor expenses without increasing the original amount intended for spend. Now, we all live in the real world, and of course, expenses come upon us that we didn't plan for. And that is when you would actually put this concept into play. All right, so let's work with a scenario. Now, let's say, for example, your charger stopped working. This can be the charger for your laptop or a mobile phone or possibly even a tablet. Now, this does not fit into an emergency category. However, it's quite important. These devices are required for communication. For some persons, it may be required for working. So obviously, we would need to get the charger replaced, right? But we'd like to be able to do that without compromising our savings or having to touch that emergency fund. All right, so first you would find out the cost to replace the charger. From there, you would next look at the items on your budget. The items on your budget can fit into 2 categories: flexible and fixed. The fixed items on your budget would be items such as possibly your car mortgage, your home mortgage, your rent, and possibly also your mobile plan. Those that would fit into flexible are costs associated with your utilities, the grocery bill, the amount you have set aside for your kids' allowance, and possibly even your gas or petrol that you use in your car. Once you have identified the flexible items, you check to see how you can adjust those amounts so that you can remove an amount associated with that particular item to be applied to the charger cost. Now, some of you may be saying, well, the items are on my budget because they're all items that I need. Now remember, in utilizing this concept, you're not removing anything from your budget. You're just trying to incorporate something else, right? So you're not going to remove the cost, for example, your grocery, because obviously you would need to eat for that period. But what you're going to do is to reduce the cost for your grocery. Let's say, for example, when you go to the supermarket, you would always stock up on your fruits and vegetables because, of course, it's the healthy way of life, right? But think about it. If it is that you don't eat fruits for, let's say, a week or 2, nothing is really going to go wrong with your health. If anything goes wrong with your health during that period, it is not because of the fruits that you had not eaten for that period. So that is what you would do. If it is that, for example, you used to purchase large bottles of soda, think about going with water for that period. So you're removing items from that flexible item on your budget so that you can get an amount to apply to the charger. If the amount by which you are able to reduce that item, for example, grocery, is still not sufficient to cover the charger in our example that you'd like to purchase, then you would simply go on to another item that is flexible on the budget. Once you put all the available funds that you can remove from those items to the new item that you're trying to add to your budget, then you will see that you are spending the same amount that you intended to spend without touching your savings. So essentially what you have been able to do is to cover all of your expenses without actually dipping into your savings. That's a win-win situation right there. So if we are serious about saving, if it is that we are determined to reach a particular goal within a specified period, we must ensure that we don't dip into our savings. We must avoid it at all costs. So this is a very simple way of doing just that. Remember that habits are something that is formed, and if it is that you make it a habit of running to your savings as soon as something comes along that requires money, then you're never going to get to that target. So that's basically how money recycling works, and as promised, I'm going to share with you 5 ways in which I utilize this very concept in my day-to-day living. So one of the flexible items on my budget is grocery. Now, we can't be afraid to sacrifice. If we have a goal, we have to be determined to get there. I look at my grocery list, if I realize that I had intended to purchase any drinks, I immediately remove those. I've already told myself that I will be drinking tap water for that period. Another item on the grocery list that I would immediately remove is cheese. From my part of the world, cheese is expensive, but I'm a cheese lover. Cheese will always be on my grocery list, but it's not a necessity. I can prepare lots of meals without cheese. I would remove mayonnaise if it is that the mayonnaise is on my list. I would decide to make purchases of cheaper cuts of meat. Things like that I would do, and I would immediately start getting an amount to put towards that unplanned for expense. Another item that is flexible is my children's allowance or lunch money. Again, that's dependent on which part of the world you're from. Some persons give their children money daily, sometimes it's weekly or even monthly. Now, I cut that. My kids won't be happy, but at the end of the day, if I have a goal to meet, then I have to ensure that I don't touch my savings. So I immediately reduce the amount that I had originally set up to give them. Another flexible item on my budget is utilities. Again, that is dependent on what part of the world you're from. Some persons may pay for utilities as prepaid while others pay after the fact, which would make it postpaid. My services are postpaid, so I use a service and then I pay for it. In this instance, I would go on what I call a conservation binge. Nothing is taken for granted. No light is left on that is not being used by a member of the household. If it is that we can stay together to use one particular light in the home, then we do that. No pipe is left running. All the taps, I walk and ensure that they are turned off completely when not in use. Landline. My landline is also postpaid. Everybody has a mobile phone in my household. Everybody has a mobile phone plan. So at that point, nobody's allowed to make calls from my landline. You must use the plan minutes that you have on your phone. If one person runs out, then they make their calls from someone else's mobile plan in the household. So that immediately reduces the cost that I would have to spend on utilities. Another item on my budget that is flexible is petrol. That's the gas that I would use in my car. Now, my petrol bill has already been reduced because I work from home, so I don't have a lot of commuting doing anymore. My children also do online classes, so we are at home a lot. However, if there's an amount to save from there, I make sure that I do it. So if I had intended to go somewhere that is nearby, because generally I drive to go everywhere, I would, in this instance, walk. If it's within walking distance, I would walk. It's good for my health, and in this instance, it would also be good for my pocket. Another item on my budget that is flexible is eating out. Now, because of COVID, we don't go out as much to eat anymore. However, the bill for that aspect of my household still remains at a high amount because we have the food delivered. So as opposed to going out, we have it delivered. So there's a cost right there that I also reduced by, of course, preparing meals at home. Any part of the world that you're from, it's always cheaper to prepare your meals at home as opposed to eating out or having your food delivered to you from another restaurant or organization. And before I go, I'd like to share with you a little quote from Benjamin Franklin. He says, "Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship." So you may be thinking that the amounts that you're taking from your savings is small. However, this happening over time will thwart your savings goal.